Not 5 minutes goes by that we don't have a new slew of sexual assault allegations against a public figure or politician. Well, now, one of those accused has killed himself. Kentucky State Representative Dan Johnson shot himself in the head after he was accused of molesting his daughter's then 17-year-old friend. This happened a few years back. It was alleged that he entered a bedroom where these girls were sleeping and began engaging in inappropriate behavior with the then 17-year-old friend of his daughter. Now, I don't know if the allegations against this guy are true, but to me they hold water. It's been my experience, professional experience in law enforcement, that when a suspect commits suicide, it's typically because they're guilty. Johnson left a rambling suicide note about being innocent and how these allegations haunted him, and I'm paraphrasing. He also discussed a little bit about PTSD post 9/11. Now, I haven't been able to confirm whether or not he was a first responder, so I have no idea what he means about that. I also, like I said, admitted to inappropriately chatting up young girls on Facebook. Now, he wasn't a wealthy man. He wasn't a particularly famous man. And 17-year-old girls, well, now she's in her early 20s, girls that age typically don't lie about this kind of sexual assault. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. It's a tragic situation. So in my professional opinion, again, we have no idea. The guy is not alive to defend himself. His lawyers probably aren't going to be speaking on his behalf anymore because he's dead. We don't know what happened. I give weight to the allegations. I suspect they're true because the victim had no motivation to lie. Now contrast that with another big one that's breaking. Russell Simmons, the rap mogul, the guy who created Def Jam Records, brother of Joe Simmons, Run DMC, a pioneer in rap music and hip-hop, and a guy who's, if not a billionaire, if not over a billionaire, then very, very close to it. A very, very wealthy, very powerful, very, very famous guy. He's being accused now by 9 women of sexual misconduct. 4 or 5 of them are accusing him of flat-out rape. Now, these allegations are 20 and 30 years old again. And to these, I am suspect. Look, Russell Simmons may very well be a serial sexual predator. I don't know. But it is concerning to me. In one case, we had a 17-year-old who immediately came forward. And then the allegations surfaced again several years later. But a few years. This is going back, I believe, the incident was alleged to have happened between 2013 and 2015. A very recent case with regards to that now deceased Kentucky State rep. But in Russell Simmons' case, it's similar to Roy Moore. It's similar to the allegations that were leveled against Donald Trump. These are 20, 30-year-old allegations. Allegations that at the time were never leveled. Allegations that at the time never warranted police reports or civil lawsuits. And against a guy who's very famous, very rich, and very powerful in the music business. So we have to ask those questions, because when we don't start to ask questions of these accusers who come forward decades later, we diminish the credibility of the 17-year-old victim who immediately came forward. We also tax law enforcement resources. I'd like to see a civil statute of limitations on sexual assault claims at around 10 years. If you were a victim of child sexual abuse, we can extend that to 50 years. Oftentimes, people go to therapy later in life when they were molested as children, and they find the courage to come forward much later. That's a different category of crime. There's a different pathology of the offender, and it warrants a bit more flexibility with the statutes. But I don't like this new precedent that anyone can come out of the woodwork, accuse a well-known, famous, wealthy person, and or all of the above, and we assume that the default reaction is automatically going to be making that public figure, that wealthy individual, a pariah. It shouldn't be. Everyone is entitled to due process. People shouldn't immediately be fired from their jobs. Look what happened to Harold Ford Jr., the former rep from Tennessee, far-left Democrat. I'm no fan of the guy, but he worked with one of the big banks. One allegation, unproven, and he was essentially tossed out. No, he tossed out the door, tossed out on the sidewalk over one unproven allegation. Now, I suspect the bank might have had some more information that we didn't see, but Ford is fighting it. Ford is pushing back. We saw this happen to Charles Payne at Fox Business with Scotty Nell Hughes. Full disclosure, I know Scotty. I happen to think she's a very nice woman. I know Charles. He's a great guy. But Scotty Nell Hughes accused Charles of sexual harassment. Charles Payne took the very unusual, very interesting, and actually very effective step of releasing all of their text messages. He admitted that, yes, they did have extramarital affairs. Both Scotty and Charles were married. Charles released the text messages which showed that Scotty Nell Hughes was a very willing participant in the extramarital sexual affair. Charles Payne is back on Fox News. He worked this thing out beautifully. He's back on television because he met the allegations head on and he disproved them. But he was almost a victim of this smear campaign. He was suspended. Luckily, wasn't fired. This is what I want to see more of these people do. But how do you more of those accused who are innocent? But how do you disprove something that didn't happen if it didn't happen? How do you disprove a sexual assault that didn't happen if you had no prior relationship with the victim? You never texted the victim. If you had no incriminating text from them. That's what's very dangerous to me. That's what sends the red flags up for the cop in me. Our system is supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, not guilty until you prove your accusers wrong, especially accusers who come out of the woodwork 20, 30 years later. And I need to note, and I need to really, really impart that the law enforcement community would have an incredibly tough, if not impossible time ever prosecuting one of these cases. In fact, I don't know if there were no statute of limitations. I don't know of a prosecutor in the United States who would have taken the case of the Roy Moore victims. And let's talk about the Roy Moore victims, the Roy Moore accusers, I should say. Beverly Nelson, the woman with the yearbook, to me was incredible from day one. The woman simply was not credible. The yearbook looked like a child wrote it. The woman's tears were fake. Her body language indicated that she was lying. And worst of all, she had Gloria Allred as her attorney. Whenever I see Gloria Allred, I immediately doubt the victims. And that's a very problematic thing because victims who are legitimately abused deserve to be heard. They deserve to be treated with priority. But these grandstanding attorneys like Gloria Allred and her daughter Lisa Bloom, who have been caught time and again fabricating witnesses, fabricating evidence, but never doing it to the point where they can be disbarred, well, they're hurting women everywhere who are legitimately abused because we're defaulting to a position where if the person is accusing someone wealthy, someone famous, and it's 20 years later, we're automatically saying, okay, put the brakes on. There's got to be a motive behind it. It's got to be political. It's got to be for their 15 minutes of fame. It's got to be for a payday in a civil trial or hopefully a settlement to go hush-hush. That's very troubling. Very troubling. Look, I'm never a fan of government intervention. I'm never a fan of imposing legislative solutions on social justice or criminal justice issues. But in this case, we just might have to in the form of tort reform because these people are being incentivized to falsely accuse. Now, I'm not saying Russell Simmons' accusers are lying. They may very well have been raped. He may be a serial predator, should be in jail. I don't know because all we have are their words. And when the guy is a billionaire, when the guy is very famous, and the guy's very powerful in the music industry, and many of these women didn't make it in the music industry, you have to ask questions as to, are there other motivations behind the allegations? Now, hopefully law enforcement will look into this, and hopefully they'll do a better job than they did on Harvey Weinstein. We know Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance really looked the other way on Weinstein because Weinstein was such a large Democratic donor. Cyrus Vance and the New York Democratic Party, the powers that be that keep Cyrus Vance the Manhattan DA as a Democrat, with a wink and a nod, encouraged Vance to not go too hard on mega donor and buddy to Obama and the Clintons, Harvey Weinstein. And we saw how that worked out. So I do expect law enforcement agencies to become a bit more thorough. I do expect prosecutorial agencies, district attorneys, state attorneys, attorneys general, to become a bit more thorough on this. But until they do, I would caution us, the public, to not knee-jerk react to these allegations. Now, when you've got allegations like Weinstein, where victims did go to the police and the Manhattan DA essentially went soft on him because of political concerns, well, then we have every right to vilify the person being accused. But when you have these allegations essentially existing in a vacuum with no paper trail, no history, no proof that anything was ever done about them at the time, I just caution, let's treat those accused like we'd want to be treated if we were falsely accused. Let's treat them as innocent until proven guilty and let the system run its course. If you like this content, please subscribe to our premium service at www.therebel.media/shows. If you're already subscribing, thank you so much. I will be back with you tomorrow. Thanks for watching.